I don't like to come on this podcast and talk about the bad teams and the bad things that are going on in sports, because there's so many good things we can continue to push out, like the Milwaukee Bucks and what they're doing with Giannis and those boys, what the Utah Jazz and Portland Trailblazers have done so far, becoming the surprise teams of the NBA. But this Lakers situation is becoming bothersome. It's to a point where I think we need to address it, because this trio is just not working. Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis are brought on this team to win another championship for this Lakers franchise, which is so historic and has so many championships throughout the history of their franchise. But it's just not working. As dominant as we thought they were going to be, they're not doing that. As we sit here in November, they are the second worst team in the NBA. The Houston Rockets are the only team that are worse than them with as many losses as they have. And I think for the Houston Rockets, that's purposeful. That's purposeful because they're going after another draft pick and another lottery pick later on. The situation that the Lakers are in, they don't have that luxury. Losing these games does nothing for them this season because they don't even own their picks. The New Orleans Pelicans still have their picks from the trade for Anthony Davis, so many years ago. Now, I can't say this trade was a failure. I'll never say that, because the Lakers did get a championship out of that trade for Anthony Davis. But I don't think they're where they thought they would be at this point in his career. I thought Anthony Davis was brought on to, after they won that championship, LeBron James is supposed to be able to settle down and become the second option on a team that was supposed to be led by Anthony Davis. And then you brought in Russell Westbrook to kind of help that load, because we knew LeBron James was slowing down. He when he's not in the game, they want Russell Westbrook to take control of the offense. And he was expecting to sit out a couple games the last 2 years since Russell Westbrook has been there. But they just haven't had the luxury to do that because they're not winning games. They're not very dominant. They don't work together. And now this is a basketball situation that we've seen before. Sometimes you can't just put the top stars together and expect them to work out. We can look back at the history of the league, like the 98-99 Houston Rockets. I don't know if you know about it because it's way back when, but Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Scottie Pippen were on that team. They're on that same team. They didn't win a championship either. We usually only hear about the good stuff, like the Boston Celtics when they made the trade for Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, got him together with Paul Pierce, and they won a championship out of that. And because of that, LeBron James had to make his own trio to bring to Miami, because he wasn't going to beat that trio by himself. And if he was going to beat them, he wasn't going to beat the Spurs with Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili and those guys. He wasn't going to do that on his own, because at the time his teams just weren't great in Cleveland. And since that time, it's always been about getting the top three guys, getting a big three, because that's what seemed to have been working at that time. I don't think you can do that anymore. That's not the case in today's NBA. It seems like what you need now is a great duo. Two guys that are reliable, are going to be on the court, can be healthy, and that's not just something the Lakers deal with. A lot of players, like a lot of teams like the Nets, are also dealing with that same situation. Having guys that are reliable and on the court and can be there and play great offensively and defensively on both sides of the ball, and then you surround those two guys with a bunch of shooters. And the Lakers don't have either of those right now because they can't stay healthy. And you got to give LeBron James a pass on that. He's been healthy most of his career, and he's played more minutes than I think anybody in the NBA. And he has a right to now start to get hurt because he's 38 years old. He shouldn't be the main guy on your team anymore. He shouldn't be. But they don't have that. They don't have shooters, which we've talked about before on this podcast. They don't have shooters on that floor. So it doesn't work in that aspect because they just can't seem to get up good shots. So even when they were playing good defense at the beginning of the year, they weren't being rewarded for their efforts because they were still losing games because they couldn't outscore their opponents. It just wouldn't work. I think what we have learned from this, though, is that Russell Westbrook wasn't the problem. He wasn't the issue for the Lakers, which I think I was one of the few people that thought that from the outside looking in. If you follow the Lakers a lot, maybe your thoughts are different. You probably saw that Russell Westbrook was just a scapegoat for what was going on. Because now that Russell Westbrook's coming off the bench and getting to play with guys around him that aren't LeBron James with the same skill sets as him, it seems to be working well for him. He's putting up great numbers now, and that's worked out well for the Lakers. But even with him doing that, even with him taking that big step and that big risk for his career, this team is still not working. Like, as we said before, these guys are not bad players on their own. They just don't fit well together. These teams that collect these stars, sometimes they just don't fit well together as a trio. Individually, these guys are the best player on your team. But if you want to win a championship, you're going to need two of those guys to be top tier and be healthy and be on the floor all the time. That's just not working for the Lakers. Listen, I'm not even sure what the solution is at this point, but I think the Lakers need to make a decision because they can't tank and they can't win games right now. Like, they're trying to, but they just can't do it. And so if you can't tank and so you're losing for no reason, you're just in this middle space of limbo. It's time to start trading pieces. Trading pieces. Even if you get less value from what you believe they are, which you most likely will from these guys that you have on your team, you need to start setting yourself up for your future. You got your championship out of the LeBron James and Anthony Davis era. You got your championship. No matter what people say about it, a bubble chip or anything like that, that championship was one of the most difficult championships to win, I think, in terms of what the world was going through and how those guys were able to come together and still finish the job, especially for Kobe Bryant after his passing. So you've done what you needed to do. You've had the graces. It's time to rebuild. It's time to rebuild. Thanks for watching this video. If you made it this far, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, I have a podcast called Rip Jersey. Follow that, add it to your playlist. Listen to it wherever you can. Thanks for watching again. Peace.